In this video, we're going to take a look at the 2024 election map based on my latest prediction. Trump is dominating over the other candidates as we enter the month of June and is on track to becoming the first Republican presidential nominee to win the popular vote since George W. Bush in 2004. However, he will not be able to win back the White House without the Electoral College. And so in this video, we'll take a look at how Biden and Trump match up against each other in the race to 270. We'll begin by filling in the solid states for both parties. These are states that will vote for either Biden or Trump by margins of 12 percentage points or more. These are very safe states for either side, and Biden is going to start off by sweeping the West Coast. Yes, states like Washington and Oregon could get close, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of these two states went down to becoming likely blue. However, right now, Biden should win them by just over 12 points, although the margins are definitely going to be weaker than they were last time. For example, in California, Biden's expected margin is 20 points. In 2020, he won the state by nearly 30. So that's what we're going to see in many of these solid Democratic states. They're still going to be solid, but the margins are just going to be much smaller. Hawaii will be blue, and so will Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, as well as New Jersey, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, along with the 1st District of Maine and the state of Illinois, giving the incumbent president 139 electoral votes. As for former President Trump, he is going to win nearly every state in the center of the country. All of these states low in electoral votes is all states that Trump has done very well in over the last few election cycles. The 2nd District of Nebraska is much more competitive, so we're going to get back to that later on. Trump will also dominate in the Deep South. All of these states will be going red, as well as the 2nd District of Maine and the state of Alaska. This puts him up at 126, and the addition of Iowa and Ohio will put him slightly ahead. Both of these states were competitive just a decade ago. In 2012, they were competitive in 2016, but ever since Trump flipped them 8 years ago, they've been Republican states. They re-elected their governors by solid 20-point margins in the midterms, and these states are going to be solid for Donald Trump, giving him 149 electoral votes. Now moving on to the likely states, these states will go to either candidate by margins between 5 and 12%, so they will be more competitive, but one candidate certainly has an edge. The first likely state for Joe Biden is going to be Colorado. 10 electoral votes. According to the latest polling average, he leads by 6.5, so this is within that range. However, Biden did win the state by 14 points in the last election, so this is a pretty significant drop from what we saw 4 years ago, and in 2016, Hillary Clinton managed to win it by 5 points. We're basically going back to where we were 8 years ago. Joe Biden's big lead in the state of Colorado has basically been washed away in just a few years. We also have New York and New Jersey. Democrats have really had some pretty severe blunders in both of these states. In New York, of course, Andrew Cuomo had that sexual harassment scandal, and that has really hurt Democrats statewide. His successor, Kathy Hochul, is a very unpopular governor and almost lost the governorship in 2022 to Lee Zeldin, a Republican. The margin was less than 10 points, and according to basically all of the most recent polling from the state, we see Biden leading by just 9-10% margins. This is very weak considering it's a state that the incumbent president carried by 23 points in the last election. So New York is nowhere near as blue as it was before, and nor is New Jersey, where Senator Bob Menendez has been convicted many times of bribery charges over the last few years, and most recently in 2024. He's not running for re-election, but he's definitely damaged Democrats' image in the state, and according to the only poll so far for the 2024 race, Biden leads by just 7 points over Donald Trump in a state that he carried by 16 points last time. Before we continue, only 3% of you guys are subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. Moving on to the two likely states for Trump. First off, we have Texas, 40 electoral votes. It simply isn't going to be close. Yes, Biden was able to cut down on Trump's margin to 5.6% in 2020, but he's not going to be able to do any better than that. In 2016, Texas went to Trump by 9 points. Really not the strongest margin considering that Mitt Romney, who who lost the 2012 election, managed to win the Lone Star State by 16 points. Texas is simply not as red as it once was, but it is still rather Republican, and in 2024, it's not going to be the year where Democrats really start to damage the GOP's lead. And so Trump is up by 9.3% in the state. He's going to win it by somewhere around that margin. And Florida is going to be the other likely Republican state, 30 electoral votes, another major prize. Although this state has always been hyper competitive, in 2020, it only voted for Trump by 3.4%, but now is expected to go to the former president by nearly 10 points, just like in Texas. And in 2022, we saw Ron DeSantis and Marco Rubio get elected by 15-20 point margins. So Florida really is not the state it once was. It is now firmly in the Republican category, and so this will give Donald Trump 219 electoral votes. And now we'll fill in the lean states. These states will be categorized by margins between 1 and 5 points. They're still going to be rather competitive, and one candidate will have a slight edge, but these states really could go either way. So for Joe Biden, we first have New Mexico, the state with a Hispanic majority. It's the only one in the entire country, and as Hispanic voters continue to move to the right, Democrats are going to struggle. Joe Biden leads in the state by around 8 points. He won it by 10 points last time. The margin's probably going to go under 5 by the time we get to November. And in Virginia, this is a state where Biden leads by 4.3%, less than half of his 10-point margin from 2020. Virginia also elected a Republican governor in 2021, so the state really is not as liberal as it was even just 4 years ago, which is why I now have it in the lean Biden column. He's still definitely favored, but Virginia is one of the states Trump is attacking, is one of the states where he's trying to flip, and so if he continues to put more resources into the Commonwealth of Virginia, Joe Biden really is going to struggle. Trump, on the other hand, however, has many more lean states. Starting off with the 2nd District of Nebraska, he's on track to winning it back after Biden flipped it in 2020. Biden also flipped the state of Arizona, winning it by 0.31%, becoming the first Democrat to carry the state in a presidential election since Bill Clinton in 1996. However, according to the 2024 polls, Trump leads by 5.2% and has been ahead throughout the entirety of the election cycle. Arizona really isn't going to the left once again. Yes, it has 2 Democratic senators right now, even though Kyrsten Sinema switched to becoming independent. She was still elected as a Democrat. Arizona also has a Democratic governor, but in the presidential election in 2024, Biden is simply too unpopular to win it, and so Arizona will be a lean Republican state. North Carolina will be lean for Trump as well. As of right now, the former president's ahead by 5.5 points. He's been ahead throughout basically the entirety of the election cycle. The Tar Heel state is going to remain a red state, a state that Trump carried in both 2016 and 2020. The last time that a Democrat won was 2008 with the election of Barack Obama, and before this, you'd have to go all the way back to 1976 and the election of Jimmy Carter. So North Carolina is still a rather Republican state. It's in the South, and yes, it was close in 2020, but the same cannot be said for 2024. And the final state in the Sun Belt here, Georgia, 16 electoral votes. Trump leads by 4.6% in the polling average. The state was actually pretty Republican in 2016. Trump managed to carry it by over 5 points, but in 2020, it was really surprising in that it went for Joe Biden by 1/4 percentage point. It was actually to the left of North Carolina, which wasn't thought to be possible before this election. Georgia also has 2 Democratic senators now. However, it does still have a Republican governor, Brian Kemp, which it re-elected by a pretty wide margin in 2022. And so going into the election this November, Trump is easily going to flip back Georgia, which was Biden's narrowest victory. Considering how much less popular he is, it's a no-brainer that Biden's going to lose the Peach State. So Georgia is going to be the 3rd lean Republican state on this map. And the final 2 lean states are going to be Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. in the Rust Belt. Both of these states have shifted to the right in recent years. They were both pretty liberal under Clinton, even in the era of Al Gore and John Kerry, as well as Barack Obama. These two states voted for Democrats all the way through. However, in 2016, Trump won them, and in 2020, Biden narrowly won them back. Pennsylvania by a 1-point margin, Wisconsin by 0.6. However, Trump is looking very healthy in both of these states as we move into 2024, with Trump ahead by 0.6 in Wisconsin. He's been leading throughout most of the election cycle, going all the way back to February, while in the Keystone state of Pennsylvania, this is actually Biden's birth state, and it's a state that Biden cannot lose if he wants to win the election. However, currently, Trump leads by 2% in Pennsylvania, although this lead has flip-flopped quite a bit over the last few months. Pennsylvania is definitely pretty shaky. It's not at all a guarantee for Trump or Biden, but right now Trump certainly has the advantage, so both of these states are going to be placed into that lean Republican category, which will boost Donald Trump to 292 electoral votes. And now to finish off the map, we're going to fill in the tilt states, states that will be decided by margins less than 1%. For Joe Biden, we have New Hampshire and Maine. These two states can all get very competitive. New Hampshire only voted for Clinton by 0.37% in 2016, and even though Maine voted for Biden by 9 points in 2020, Trump actually leads in the latest polling from the state of Maine. Even though I'm giving it to Biden right now, things can definitely change if Trump continues to hold on to this lead, but the polling right now is really rather concerning for the Biden campaign. Nevada, on the other hand, is going to be tilt, but in favor of Donald Trump. This is one of two states I'm going to give him in this prediction that he did not win in 2016 and actually voted for Clinton by 2.5 points 8 years ago. But according to the polling right now, Trump not only leads in the silver state, but he's ahead by 6.2%. In fact, Trump is performing better in Nevada than he is in virtually every other swing state. He's been leading in the polls since November, and Nevada also elected Joe Lombardo, a Republican, to become its governor in 2022. He actually defeated the incumbent Democratic governor, Steve Sisolak, so a pretty major victory for Republicans in Nevada, and it's definitely a state that Trump can win this November. And finally, we have just Minnesota and Michigan left. Minnesota, a state that Democrats have won in every election going back to the 70s. It's a state with the longest Democratic voting streak. And yes, Biden may lead in the polls now, but that's because we don't really have very many polls out of the state at all. It's a state that consistently overestimates Democrats, and it's a state that has taken a pretty significant shift to the right over the last few years. Donald Trump performed very well in 2016 when he came within 2 points of flipping the state. And in 2024, if Trump continues to keep up how he's doing right now, if he continues to hold on to that momentum, he can certainly win Minnesota, a state that his campaign is targeting pretty heavily. So it's going to be in the tilt Republican column, and so will Michigan. 15 electoral votes, of Wolverine state. It is the most liberal out of the upper Rust Belt states, but Donald Trump leads by 0.8% in the polling right now. He's been ahead since October actually, of 2023. He really is dominating in the state. Joe Biden won it by 3 points last time. He was supposed to win it by nearly 8. The polling really overestimated Biden's support here, and with Trump now in the lead, this is a pretty surefire sign that he's going to win the state of Michigan. And so with all the states filled in, according to my latest 2024 election prediction, Donald Trump is going to win 323 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 215. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like this video down below if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel for more consistent content like this leading up to the election, and comment down below who you think is going to win the 2024 election.